Hey, it's Tammy. Today I thought I'd go into a little bit more detail about the long-term effects with regards to other oils. Um, in case you have not seen my other videos, I'll take a moment to explain that the difference between how I use essential oils versus how people typically do um, is such that I focus on the long-term effects. Actually, I focus on both. I focus on the symptom relief as well as the long-term effects. Um, the one thing I do realize is that everything that we are exposed to, whether it be foods, drinks, anything that we inhale, doesn't necessarily mean just smoking. It could be just aromas in the air. Even if you don't smell anything, there's something always around us that's affecting the chemistry in our bodies. That includes the products that we apply to our skin. The household cleaners. There again, now you're inhaling something, and if depending on whether or not you're using any protective gear, you are getting it. It's being drawn in through the skin tissue. So all of these are factors that are working either with our bodies as well as against our bodies, and that actually also includes medications, supplements, herbals. No matter what we consume, it is affecting our physical chemistry. And that's why I focus on not only what symptoms are we working to relieve, we also need to pay attention to the long-term effects. Now, one of the things that I'm known for saying is that, it's not necessary to use one oil for forever. And I have a tendency to switch things up with clients. I don't necessarily make it all different. And there again, it depends on what you're really trying to affect. And so buying things in large quantities isn't always advisable. One of the things about our culture is more is better. And I prefer to say less is more for many, many things. And that includes the way we consume things. It was funny when I was a kid. I remember being told, you want to make sure you eat different foods. You don't want to always eat the same foods. And I didn't understand that. It's like, if I want peanut butter and I like peanut butter, why can't I always have peanut butter, right? If I like pasta, I want to have pasta. I don't want to have to change it. I like it. But the thing is that there's a purpose to that, and that I don't know that anybody's really ever conveyed, but it's something that I've come to understand, which is the foods actually contain different ingredients, different components, just like an essential oil has different components. And those different components are considered cofactors. They are metabolized and assimilated by the body. Those would be more of the macronutrients. The micronutrients, which would be your vitamins and your minerals, those are used as cofactors genetically for cell production, cell function. So these are, this is really very important to understand, and this is why it's so necessary to, number one, change up the diet. Number two, realize that when the body has a symptom, or if there's like a discomfort, or even for that matter, something that feels good, it is a sign that something is working within the body. Oftentimes, this doesn't always occur. Sometimes, we can walk down the street and we can smell the exhaust of a truck. We can smell, the secondhand smoke of a cigarette, someone's perfume. You can smell anything, and you're not going to have anything. Maybe you may go, "Well, I don't like that," or so there might be, a slight aversion to the aroma. There may be something that really you like about the aroma, but physically you're not feeling anything. Well, that doesn't mean that it's not doing anything. That just simply says that it's not doing anything right now. However, what we do know through the study of the human genome is that there are genetic adaptations that sometimes cause more immediate reactions that are less than favorable within the body. And then there are those that lie dormant, like quiet. and not really doing anything until they've been exposed for so long, and then, and they actually are setting us up for possible health issues in the future. So it's hard to identify. As far as I can tell, I have never been told differently. I've never seen anything differently, no matter how many colleagues I speak to, no matter how much I look into the studies and the research that we're doing on the genome. It's very difficult to identify which genetic adaptations are actually contributing to the immediate and which ones are lying quiet. So that's that's actually a big reason why it's so important to understand the long-term effects. And in my arena, I'm more concerned with the long-term effects of the essential oils, because the essential oils are secondary metabolites from the plants, and science is using them to identify how they are affecting different genetics within the human body. Or I should say the genes. They're paying attention to the chemistry that's being affected by these oils, these plant components, and that's how they're determining a lot of how to manufacture our medications. And I think it's a brilliant way to understand how to help people on a larger scale. That said, though, the essential oils are readily available to all of us, which is very important. It's good for us because they actually do support the use of these medications if we understand what we're doing with them. And that's where I come in, because I really want to help people understand that, it is possible to offset the side effects that we hear about. It is possible to enhance the body's responses to these medications and actually get the results that we deserve. However, there's too much inundation of use of essential oils as a fragrance, and sometimes you're getting it as a fragrance grade, which doesn't have much in the way. It doesn't have a I don't like to say therapeutic, but that's really what it is. It's like a therapeutic effect. It has an ability to modify genetic expression, more so than just the fragrance grade. That doesn't mean that the fragrance grade isn't doing something to the body. It's just not the medicinal value that we have applied to it. So with that said, I wanted to go over a couple of oils today that we tend to use, that are frequently found in blends that you can purchase. And it's really a good idea to understand what they're doing to the body, rather than just picking up a book and realizing that, they do have various properties that we can attribute to whatever is going on for us in the right now. But the long-term effects, it doesn't work to keep using these same essential oils if they are in fact authentic and genuine essential oils. The three oils I want to talk about today are Niaouli, which is spelled Niaouli. It's also given the acronym MQV, and that's because it's a form of Melaleuca, but it's typically called, and you'll see it on the labels when you look at a blend, if it's in there, and it's typically found in a hormone blend, and it's spelled Niaouli. That particular oil, believe it or not, has over 110 components to it. It has its calming effects, so people like to use it in blends, possibly for relaxation. They will attribute that to, like I say, hormones, and I often see that. I've even seen it in skincare products, and I have known a lot of people that will say they have hormonal imbalances, and they will use that oil. That's great, but the long-term effect is that it can cause a lot of estrogen sensitivity, and the endocrine system in the body, the body itself is designed to seek balance. So there again, how long you need it for is really dependent upon what's going on with you and what your body tells you. If you use this oil and you use it for 4 weeks and you're still getting benefit from it, then there's no reason why you shouldn't continue with it. If you use it for 3 weeks and all of a sudden notice extreme agitation, then you may have period problems. I mean, if you're a male, you may actually may have a harder time with, no pun intended, you may have a harder time with getting an erection, because this is going to affect your testosterone levels, because it does cause an estrogen sensitivity. So it's one that really we need to pay attention to, as far as how we're going to use this for the long haul. So I don't advise getting a product that really includes that if you're going to keep using it until it's gone. If you're going to use it, and you're getting benefit from it, and you're willing to set it on the shelf and until the body lets you know that it needs it again, then by all means do that. But I would encourage you to at least get the oil individually, and then you can apply it between the toes and just kind of regulate the oil that way. Because there again, when you purchase anything in a blend, you've got the combination of these oils that are working together, and depending on what kind of product it is, you now have other factors playing into the long-term effects, and you really don't know at that point what is doing what within your body and what's actually causing the adverse reaction. Estrogen levels, when they go high, yes, we do know that there is concern with breast cancer, prostate cancer, and other hormonal challenges with PMS, and endometriosis was another one I was going to say. So there's a lot of challenges with estrogen, testosterone imbalances. So I understand the value to having this available, but when estrogen goes too high and it's not being metabolized by the body very well, at that point, you are setting yourself up, depending on your specific genetics, to potentially have anxiety. If you're not predisposed to cancer, my guess is that you're probably not going to develop it, but that is not a very fair thing to say, because your epigenome, your genetics are changing based on your life experiences, what you're currently being exposed to, what you've been exposed to. I mean, these things all alter our epigenome. And so even though you may not have breast cancer in the family or prostate cancer, you could very well be setting yourself up to it. And the first sign that your estrogen levels are too high is consistent agitation and anxiety. If you're already chronically anxious, there again, the symptom relief with Niaouli is that it'll actually help calm and soothe, right? Because it's used for that. It has that property. But over the long term, it's continuing to jack your estrogen levels. And what we know when estrogen goes up is histamine goes up, and then it predisposes you to even higher yeast levels. Again, long-term effects with Niaouli needs to be used with caution, and in the interim, if you're a woman that's headed into menopause, if you're perimenopausal, it's a really good oil for supporting estrogen production. It's a really natural source of being able to provide estrogen to the body. However, that said, one of the things that's really important about these oils, and I will continue to go on with the videos, is that a lot of these oils actually affect very, very specific chemicals within the body, chemical messengers, and to keep increasing those levels or keep influencing those levels is not good for the body over the long term. So here again, we have an oil that does affect estrogen levels. For the short term, it may be beneficial depending on what you have going on with you. Long term, not so much, because I want to recap. It will increase histamine levels, and histamine is tied to allergies, skin rashes, depression, anxiety, irritability, insomnia. And so now, even though you're trying to relax and calm down, you're having even harder time doing so. And then from there, depending on your system, you would be setting yourself up for potential systemic yeast infections. Now, the interesting thing is the next oil I could talk about would be geranium. Geranium actually has antifungal properties. So it sounds like it would be a really great oil to use for regulating hormones, and it's very possible it could be your offset to the Niaouli. But it also it affects testosterone levels, and would be a really good oil to use with men. If you have a tendency to have high estrogen levels already, you can use geranium to bring that down and help with testosterone levels. But there again, long term for women, that's not advisable because we do need our estrogen. So there again, if you're dealing with menopause, geranium would not be one that you would want to use. So here again, we're getting into the regulation. Interestingly enough, I mentioned lavender the other day. The reason why lavender is so well received is because it contains a constituent called linalool. And linalool is also found in geranium. So you can get the calming and soothing effects. It'll help adjust testosterone levels, bring them up, and help reduce estrogen levels. But long term, again, depending on male, female, you've got to pay attention to what's going on within the body. The reason why it affects you like this is because it works directly with the nitric oxide synthase genetic sequence, and because of a constituent called 1,8-cyanol. So that's 1,8 cyanol, CINEOL. That particular constituent works directly with the nitric oxide synthase gene, and so if you have, which is beneficial because if you're dealing with neurotransmitter imbalances, it would be helpful, especially if other hormones are out of balance. So again, that's an oil that you can consider. It does have antiviral, it does have antifungal. And I want to say on that note, the reason why we know it has these properties is because these oils are being tested in labs. We are growing in petri dishes. We grow fungus, we grow viruses, we grow bacteria, and they actually apply oils to these petri dishes, and they watch how these colonies of microbes develop, and they're able to distinguish which ones have beneficial properties. And that's the reason why we know this. This isn't something that somebody made up because it helped them get over a cold or a yeast infection. So this has been demonstrated. There's evidence to show this in labs. The last oil I wanted to go over today is one called Clary sage. This is a really beautiful oil. It does help to, again, with testosterone. It does help reduce estrogen sensitivity. Although it can, because of its ability to support testosterone levels. Therefore, if you're not really sure which ones you're dealing with, and more than likely you don't, it would be really nicely blended with both with Niaouli and or geranium. Okay. However, the long-term effects with and I want to say also that Clary sage actually has 250 constituents in it. So this is how complex these oils are, and this is the reason why it's good to adjust. And yeah, it might be really good to have an entire medicine cabinet full of oils, just so you can regulate these and use them for so long and then begin to switch them up. And the more accustomed you become to paying attention to the signs and the communication that your body's giving you, the better off you'll be able to establish which oils to choose. That said, Clary sage, long-term effects, it actually stimulates dopamine production. And you may not need dopamine. Your dopamine levels may be good. Dopamine may not be something you would not want to, you may not need it. In the realm of schizophrenia, addiction, even autism, it is a beneficial oil because it actually helps to stabilize the dopamine receptors But there again, long term, you don't want to stick with it because it'll actually exacerbate the very symptoms you're trying to offset. It's a very good one for using with Parkinson's for that reason, because it keeps your dopamine levels elevated. And even though, there's some concern that schizophrenia has high dopamine levels, or it's not being used properly by the body, the thing is what scientists have done since all of this has been coming out about schizophrenia is they've actually seen more beneficial results when they've provided the patients with schizophrenia with dopamine enhancing medications. So we do know that activating those receptors is very, very important. There again, though, long term, we don't want to keep them elevated because we don't want to exacerbate their negative symptoms. So it's also good if you are somebody who's been taking Wellbutrin and any one of the antidepressants that affect dopamine levels. So here again, we talk about long-term effects, but you don't want to stay on it forever, because the bottom line to working with neurotransmitters is actually to help the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal cortex axis. It's called the HPA axis. Hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. You want to help regulate and balance that. Maca root is a superfood that we are maybe becoming more familiar with. This actually works on that axis. However, if you've ever read anything about maca, it can cause agitation because it can overstimulate the endocrine system. So again, here's another example of why you want to use something and then not use it, and then use it and then not use it. You're trying to help keep the system regulated. But like I said, with these oils that have very, very specific actions that either that influence the neurotransmitter and hormonal production, you don't want to keep going for the specific chemical. You want to begin to work with the entire system, and that is the crux of holistic health, is helping the entire system. For the immediate situation, it would be advisable to use something along these lines, depending on what you have going on with you. But over time, you want to either switch to another oil that'll help offset that and help regulate it, and in the meantime, beginning to include other oils that work directly on that HPA axis. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. I believe I've covered as much as I want to today on the long-term effects of these oils. Again, clary sage, just to recap, can increase testosterone levels, but it also influences dopamine levels. And because it does have 250 components to it, it does have other actions in the body. Geranium does have an effect on the nitric oxide synthase genetic sequence. So that one is really very important to pay attention to, as it also has some fabulous properties that may not be what you need. Niaouli, the same thing. In fact, the same thing goes for all of these. It depends on not only the immediate symptom, it's also what your long-term effects are, and learning how to regulate these oils so that you get the maximum benefit for your body and actually give your body the proper instructions. Remember, wellness is on the other side of symptom relief. So what we're going here for is for more symptom relief. If you'd like to know more about these oils, or if you have any questions that I may not have addressed here, please let me know. I'm always here for you, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Bye now.